to our very first session of Think Different. I am so glad to see everybody here this evening. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mute everybody, and that is simply not because I don't want to hear you, but just because when everybody is unmuted, so it just creates a bit of a din in the background and it's kind of hard to hear everybody. So the default setting on the classes will be that the background is muted. If at any point you want to ask a question, you want to share something, you want to interject with something, whatever it is, feel free to unmute your mic, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you if you can't figure out how to unmute. But either way, we are all about interaction, all about conversation. Okay, so I want to begin like this. Who in this session, who has experienced the study of the book of Tanya by raise of hand? Who has studied Tanya before? I'm looking. Okay, a decent amount. Oh, I gotta welcome some new friends. Okay, Stephanie, welcome. Mark, welcome. Alex, welcome. Who else is recently on the call or on the class? Okay, no, I think everyone else was mentioned. Okay, good. So for those of you that have studied Tanya, what I'm about to say may be what we like to call chazara, which means review. But I think even if you studied Tanya before, my goal is to encapsulate, kind of to summarize the big ideas of Tanya in the next few minutes so that we can jump right into our conversation. Tanya stands as one of the greatest books of spiritual philosophy and spiritual wisdom ever written. It's one of the great Hasidic books. In fact, in Chabad Hasidic circles, it's called the Bible, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Bible, the written law of Hasidic philosophy, of Chabad Hasidic philosophy. It's the source from which all other Hasidic discourses and expositions come from. So if you've ever studied or you're studying something of a Hasidic flavor, especially from the lens of Chabad Hasidic philosophy, odds are it's rooted somewhere in the book of Tanya. That is just how monumental it is. Tanya is comprised of 53 chapters. The Alter Rebbe, the author of Tanya, who was born in 1745 and passed away in 1812, spent, due to some fabricated charges, spent 53 days in a Russian prison. This was a test of faith and a test of just a lot of things were going on at that point, a lot of tension outside the community, within the community, and that was seen as kind of a breakthrough moment when he was exonerated of all the bogus charges and freed. And from that point on, the expounding of Hasidic philosophy grew with leaps and bounds, and that incarceration was 53 days. And it says, the Hasidim say that those 53 days correspond to the 53 chapters of Tanya. So it's a very significant number. Gan, if you know some Hebrew numerology, 53, the numerology is indicated by the Hebrew letters Nun and Gimel, but if you switch around the order, we can say Gan, of course, like Gan Eden, means a garden. And indeed, this book that's relatively small, 53 chapters, contains a wealth of wisdom and a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of inspiration and a wealth of guidance. It's like something new maybe that you haven't seen before. So what are the primary ideas and what are the primary teachings of Tanya? So I want to share with you some fundamental ideas. Number one, Tanya, in the title page of Tanya, the author writes that the entire work is based on one verse from the Torah. The whole book of Tanya, all 52 chapters, are intended to explain one single verse. And what's the verse? It's a verse from Deuteronomy, Ki karov elecha, hadavar me'od, beficha uvelvavcha la'asosa, which translates as, Moses is speaking to the people, to the Jewish people, shortly before his passing, and Moses says, you should know. I'll rewind the verses, at least in English, and then I'll translate that verse that I just read in the Hebrew. Moses says, don't think that Torah and mitzvot are too big to do. Don't think that they're too impossible, too out of our reach to keep. Don't think that they are in the heavens, that you would need to travel to the heavens in order to attain it. And don't think that it's across the ocean, that you would have to traverse and cross the ocean in order to get Torah mitzvahs? No, he says. Rather, ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od beficha uvavavcha la'asos. So rather, this thing is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart to do it. That's what he says. That's what Moses tells the people. For this thing is very close to you, i.e. Torah and mitzvot, are very close to you in your mouth and in your heart to do it. And the Alter Rebbe, the author of Tanya, writes in his introduction that the entire book of Tanya is to explain how indeed Torah and mitzvot are close to us. Close meaning that it's doable. How is it doable? It seems so often that it's very difficult. Torah and mitzvot sometimes seem very, very difficult for us to do, given all of the other stuff that's going on in our lives, all of the other challenges that we have. It could seem very difficult. So how is it that it's not only karov, not only is it close, but karov elecha hadavar me'od, that it's very close? The Alter Rebbe says in his title page that he is going to explain this verse in a way that is derech arucha uktsara, in a long and short way. What does it mean? What does that phrase mean, a long and short way? So I actually had an experience with this recently. This was before the pandemic, before the lockdown, and I was taking one of my sons to baseball practice. Actually, no, not practice, to a game. He's in a little league, I guess a little league. That sounds redundant. He plays baseball in Little League, and he was doing a game in Dunwoody. And if you know anything about Atlanta, Dunwoody game at like 6 o'clock in the evening, going from where I live in Virginia Highlands, Midtown area, gewalt geschrigen. It's a schlep and a half. But listen, you dedicate it to the kids. You know, we love the kids. They gotta get exercise. So you drive them out to Dunwoody. So I'm following Waze, and they're playing at some high school field in Dunwoody, right around the corner actually from the JCC. Maybe you even know the name. If you know the name of the high school that I'm talking about, feel free to unmute yourself and let me know the name. Anybody?
Dunwoody High School.
Shocker right there. Boom! There you go. If that's the case, that's epic. That's funny because I didn't, who knew? But I guess that makes sense. Dunwoody High School. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so they have a really nice baseball field, so I'm following Waze, and Waze tells me, okay, I should mention one more thing. There's a van in front of me that looks like a Jew van. I don't mean to be like stereotypical, but I was like, that's definitely a Jewish van. It's got, it was a giveaway. It had the Jewish school sticker on the back. It was a minivan, whatever. It looked very much like a Jewish van. And, no, in a good way, not in a bad way, in a very good way. It was definitely a Jewish van. Huh?
It must have been a Lexus.
Yeah, sure, right, exactly. Yes, and
it had Weber School on it.
It had Weber, whatever it was, right? It was, and I could tell that they were headed to the game. So I'm following my GPS, my navigation, the Waze, as it's known in English, and they tell me to pull right in. And if I pull right in, right there, and I can almost see the field, and the person in front of me continues going down the street. I see they're going a long way around. They're going still on this. I'm pulling into the parking lot already, and they're schlepping around the block. And I'm thinking, yo, what's up with that? I guess you're not using Waze. Maybe Google Maps. Who knows? Who uses that? I mean, that's so 2015. Anyway, so be that as it may, I pull in, and I'm all proud of myself because I took the shortcut, right? And I pull in, and then I realize, boom, parking lot is blocked off. Can't get to the field. Yeah, it was one of those deals where you pull in, you think you're taking the shortcut.
The dog park is right next door.
Listen, now I know, right? But I'm thinking, you know what they call this? An Ibr Chacham. An Ibr Chacham is someone who's too smart for their own good, right? So I'm trying to be clever and take a shortcut, right? Oh, it's a shortcut. Meanwhile, I can't get to where I'm going. I got to back out, go back on the street, follow that person, or I'm like they're already parked in the real spot, and now I'm making my way around. That is what we call derech kitsara ve'arucha. That's what we call a way that's short but long. It's the short, long way. It's short, but you never get there. It's the shortcut, but it's long because you never actually get to where you're going. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya says, in a Shar Blant, on the title page, says, I'm going to explain the verse, Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od, beficha uvavavcha la'asoso. That when Moses says, Torah, mitzvahs, Judaism, this whole shindig, all of this stuff, doable. In 2020, yes, he was speaking to us also. In 2020, with all of the other stuff going on, you can do it. It's very attainable. Karav elecha hadavar me'od. It's very, very doable. The Alter Rebbe says, I'm going to explain to you how this is true, how that's a true statement, but I'm going to tell you the long, short way. The long, short way means no shortcuts. It means it's going to be a long way. Yeah, it's going to be a journey of a lifetime. But if you follow the journey, you're going to get there. It's going to get you there. It's not going to be...
has the same letters as Tsaris.
Yeah, exactly right. If you try to take a shortcut, you're only setting yourself up. Exactly. So often we look for the easy way out. We look for, okay, give me like the 10-minute, give me the quick fix, and there is a place for that. But you and I, we need to know that that's not always the sustainable model. That's not always the model that really gets us where we need to be going. Sometimes it's the slow and steady. It's the slow and steady path that or route that gets us to our desired destination. Okay, so what are some of the big themes of Tanya? I want to share with you very quickly some of the major themes of Tanya that are pretty amazing. Number one, Tanya begins by exploring the composition of the soul. And I don't mean musical composition. What I mean is cellular composition. That may be a new word that I just created, but the composition of the neshama, of the soul. And the first thing he does is he pulls out a major surprise. And he basically establishes that as he's talking about the composition of the soul, the first thing you notice is, oh, surprise, it's not just one, it's two souls. The way he refers to them in Tanya is we have a nefesh elokis, or elokit, which is a godly soul, a divine soul, and we have a nefesh habahamit, or nefesh habahamis, which is an animal soul. So these are two terms that you should either know already or you should get to know. Animal soul and godly soul. The animal soul is not bad. The animal soul is all about self-preservation, feeding self. It's all about protecting self. It's the part of us that desires to eat. It's the part of us that desires to sleep. It's the part of us that desires to protect ourselves. It's the part of us that desires to achieve in various materialistic ways. It's the part of us that's trained toward materialism. It's not bad, it just is. It's very instinctive. If it feels something, it's going to act on it. It's very instinctive. That's why it's called animal soul, like an animal that we understand. If you dangle a piece of meat near a lion, don't try to talk to the lion about being a vegetarian. It's not the time. It's not going to work. You tell the lion, listen, here's a chaim. Ari, because lion is Ari in Hebrew, right? You tell the lion, listen, I have a piece of meat, however, you should know, there's a more sustainable way to eat. I have Beyond Burger. This is impossible deer. This is new stuff. Yeah, this is vegetarian. I have a great piece of sushi. Sushi, like who knows, straight from Japan. You start explaining this to the lion, and you're not going to get too far, right? You don't need to watch Tiger King or whatever it is to know that you're not going to get, dropping some pop references as we go along. It's happening. So you don't need to be an expert in lions and tigers and bears to know that that's not going to work. You're not going to reason with the lion. Yeah, it's like the famous story of Rambam, Maimonides, where he had a lot of philosopher friends and a lot of very intellectual friends. Maimonides once had an argument with somebody. This guy said that he could train animals to be exactly like human beings. So Maimonides says, listen, yeah, to some extent, but not nicht punkt, not exactly. So the philosopher, the other guy says, look, give me 3 months. I'm going to invite you to a meal, and you're going to see what's going to happen. No, the meal happens, the dinner comes around, and wouldn't you know it, this fellow, this philosopher, animal trainer, I guess, also jack of all trades, he has, who is the waitstaff? Who is waiting on the guests at this meal? I guess there was a few other guests other than Maimonides. Who is waiting on the tables? Cats. Not like the last name Cats, but actual, and not the musical either, not that movie that they just did, but like the feline, our feline friends, cats, are acting as waiters, standing on their hind legs and like with their little paws, like holding small platters of food. Maimonides says, wow, very impressive. I gotta give it to you. Looks like the real deal. Look exactly like waiters. Maimonides says, but however, I feel like it's not exactly. Nicht punkt, not exactly. He pulls out of his pocket, don't ask why he had it, it's in his pocket, pulls out of his pocket a mouse, drops the mouse on the floor. What do you think happens? Oh, platters go everywhere. The cats are running after the mouse. It's chaos and havoc. This is a story that's classically told about Rambam. I wasn't there to see it happen, but this is a classic story told about Rambam to illustrate the notion that when it comes to an animal, you can train. At the end of the day, the inner instinct comes out. And that's what the animal soul means. Animal soul means the instinctive part of self, the part that acts impulsively, the part that acts on instinct, the part that's reactive, not proactive, the part of us that feels fear and therefore does something in response to the fear. It's very reactive. Whereas the godly soul is more aligned not with heart and instinct, but rather with intellect and mindfulness and methodical thought. It's more the rational, it's more than rational. It's a godly soul. It's about something higher than self, even higher than the mind, but it's embedded in its seat, its headquarters, if you will, is in the mind to give us a more clear and rational approach. So we love animals, and we love our inner animal as well, and we take care of our inner animal, and we have to. It's a mitzvah to take good care of our bodies. At the same time, we also have something higher. We have a divine soul, a godly soul, that doesn't need to always care about self and put number one. Our godly soul gives us the ability to suspend self and put something else in front of ourselves, to put something before us, whether it's another human being or whether it is divine will. We have the ability, because of our godly soul, to put something higher than ourselves. So far, so good? Does this make sense? Yes? This is the basic, I'm giving you basic Tanya introduction. I mean, not too basic, but essential Tanya introduction. This is the opening of Tanya, the composition of the soul. Surprise, we have 2 souls. Each soul has a full suite of desires and feelings and ideas. The animal soul is turning downward to materialism. The godly soul is pulling upward, which leads us to part 2 of Tanya, and that is the conflict. Because of the composition, therefore the conflict. If you've ever felt conflicted between 2 paths in life, Japanese or Mexican food. That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about dilemmas. Right? If you've ever struggled with a real dilemma, the difference between doing something right or doing something that feels good, you have experienced the tug and the pulls, or the pull between the 2 souls. What's going on is we have the godly soul that's pulling one direction. We have the animal soul that's pulling the other direction. And we're in the middle. Who's the we? Well, the we is our bodies, ourselves, because you can only do one thing at one time. So either you're sleeping in or you're going to shul. Either you're helping out a friend or you're barbecuing for yourself, whatever it is. I'm not saying that that's not a mitzvah. It can't be a mitzvah. I'm just saying that it's either for you or for some sort of higher purpose, and there's a natural tension between these two things, and we typically vacillate back and forth. So one thing that's a major focus of Tanya, and this really goes in some ways to explain the verse that we started with, the verse from Deuteronomy, is that what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya is that every person, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done in the past, no matter what they want to do right now, has a godly soul. And the godly soul is telling the person, do the right thing, do the higher thing, do the holy thing, do the godly thing. Right? At this moment, right now, there is a voice of the godly soul. And at any moment, a person can choose. We all have free choice. A person can choose to listen to the voice of the godly soul. Furthermore, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, based on the natural disposition of the human being, where the human being is created in such a way that the mind naturally has the power to control the heart, the rational mind has natural dominion over the heart and over the emotions, so that how we think can affect how we feel, given that that's the keep our desires in check and do what we know to be right at any moment in time. This is what it means to be a beinoni. And this is the next magic term that I want you to know, and I want you, if you know it, then you've heard it. If you've heard it before, then you know it. If not, then I want you to learn it right now. The term is beinoni. What is beinoni? Beinoni really means a person who's in the middle. Not a perfectly righteous person, but also not down on the ranks either. This is somebody who's in the middle. So to explain what this term means, let me give you a very quick definition of the other two terms. A tzaddik, as explained in Tanya, is somebody who not only does the right thing, but only wants to do the right thing. When I told you before about the two souls, the tzaddik doesn't have two souls. Well, maybe the tzaddik has two souls on some level, but the voice of the animal soul is done. The animal soul is no longer pumping out its desires, its will, its information to the mind to get it going, or to the heart to get it going. The animal soul is pretty much shut down in the tzaddik. So when the tzaddik is living his or her life, so there's no challenge, there's no other voice, there's no tension, it's purely for God. On the other side, the rasha, the not so good person, is somebody who, while they have a godly soul, that's pretty ineffective, and they're following the whims and the fancies, if you will, of the animal soul. So that's your tzaddik, and that's your rasha. The beinoni is right in the middle, and the beinoni is the hero of Tanya, because the beinoni is the possible person. It's the possible man and woman that we can all strive to be. We can all be a beinoni. Hashtag beinoni proud. What is a beinoni? A beinoni is, like how I did the old hashtag. So beinoni is somebody who is a psychological rasha, but a behavioral tzaddik. I'll say that one more time. A beinoni is a psychological rasha, but a behavioral tzaddik, which means that inside the beinoni, there's all sorts of conflict. Oh my gosh, you do a Tanya scan that's like deeper than an MRI of the beinoni, and you'll see conflict and chaos, just like the rasha. Just like the rasha desires all sorts of things that are not so holy, not so good, not so positive for self, for other, for God. It's all there with the beinoni. And yet, despite all of that, and yet, it doesn't make a difference. The beinoni is doing the right thing. The beinoni is staying on track. The beinoni is able to suppress all of his or her natural, animalistic, impulsive, reactive tendencies, push them down, take a deep breath, and do the right thing. I'll ask you a simple question. In the height of your being upset, in the height of you being angry, here's a very simple question. Do you have the ability to stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and not say something nasty to the other person? Yes? Yes? For 1 second. Do you have the ability to stop for 1 second? Good. The next second, do you have the ability to stop? 1 second. Yes? Good. Guess what? A beinoni is somebody who that 1 second keeps on going. The beinoni is someone who makes the choice in this moment, living in the present, in this moment right now, I am going to choose to act in a way that I'm supposed to. I'm going to speak in the way that I'm supposed to, and I'm going to the best of my ability, push away the negative, self-defeating, lowly thoughts, all of the other impulses, the impulsive thoughts. I'm going to, when the pop-ups happen back before ad blockers on the computer, instead of clicking and engaging, Xing, hitting the X in the corner, I'm getting rid of those pop-ups. That is the beinoni life. If you want to know what #beinoni life is, it's living with conflict, living with tension, but in the moment, acting, speaking, and thinking in a healthy way, despite the chaos inside. So if you look inside the beinoni, it's like abstract art. Are you kidding me? It's a wall with paint splattered everywhere. It's very expensive art nowadays. But when you look outside, they look like a tzaddik. Again, my definition of a beinoni is a psychological Russia. In other words, in the inside, there's the conflict. Two souls are fighting and grabbing at each other. But a behavioral tzaddik on the outside, the person is acting like a mensch. Again, we tell our children this all the time. I used the example before about anger, but in similar vein, when our kids, so your child has a friend over to the house. Play date in your house. This is before coronavirus, right? This is like back in the day, like a month or two ago. So there's a kid over playing with your kid. And inevitably this will happen. It always happens. The guest kid, right, the not your kid, the one that's not going to stay at your house, so that kid is going to take a toy that belongs to your kid. You with me on this? Yes? And if your child is young enough, what's going to happen? Unmute yourself to tell me what's going to happen. Anybody?
Hey, give me my toy.
Yeah,
Give me my toy.
Yeah, give me my toy. They took my toy, and then you're going to explain to your child, look, of course it's your toy. Guess what? They're all your toys. Literally, this kid just walked in not off the streets, but he's in your house or she's in your house, and that's like, they don't have their own toys here. They're all going to be your toys. You have to share. But let's say your child's very upset, and the other child grabs the toy out of your kid's hands, and now your child has another toy and is about to bop the other child over the head with the toy. So what do you tell your child? Don't bop the other child over the head with the toy. But what if the child tells you, but I'm very upset? Your child tells you, but I'm very upset. I'm very upset that he or she took my toy, and I want to therefore strike them with this other toy. What do you tell them? No, you can't. You expect them to be a beinoni in that moment. Are you with me on what a beinoni is? You feel like you want to, but don't do it. Welcome to the world of a beinoni. We tell our kids this all the time. We should listen to what we say. It's a good thing, right? Imagine if we listened to all the advice we dispensed. We would be tzaddikim. I'm kidding. We would be beinonim. So what's a beinoni? A tzaddik is someone who was given a blessing from above and doesn't have the conflict. Good luck. Good luck on that. Let me know when you get there. A beinoni is the realistic goal that we're trying to achieve, which is, despite all the other stuff that's going on inside, we're making the right choices. We're acting and behaving in the right and healthy way. Okay, so that is the next big idea of Tanya. So first of all, just to recap. Bethany, go ahead.
Could you spell those words for me?
Beinoni. Yes. Actually, Sandrine just texted me, just chatted with me, and she spelled beinoni nicely. Yeah, you can spell it B-E-I-N-O-N-I. O-N-I. B-E-I-N-O-N-I. Beinoni. Beinoni. Now,
And the Russia,
the what, sorry?
the Russia.
Russia, don't spell it R-U-S-S-I-A. That's a different destination. Russia would be R-A-S-H-A. Russia, R-A-S-H-A. Tzaddik would be T-Z-A, Russia, Beinoni. Okay, so now we know about the composition.
Okay, thanks.
My pleasure. So that is, and by the way, anybody else have questions, comments so far? So far, so good? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. So, we've talked about the composition of the soul. There are two souls. We've talked about the battle and the struggle that ensues because of the conflict that's born of two souls. By the way, it's not like we're the first ones creating the conflict. There's conflict by design. Because I probably don't need to spell this out, but I feel like I should anyway. God designed us in this way. God designed us to live within the tension and to manage the tension and to deal with it and to nonetheless do the right thing, even though we have a strong pull in the other direction. That's literally what we're here for. That's kind of what's going on. If God wanted us to be perfect with ease, well, he already has that. They're called angels. And I think they're in the outfield. So that's something else, right? That's already there. Where we are intended, we are created to live inside the tension, inside the chaos, and come out, emerge in behavior at least, and in speech and in thought in a healthy way. Okay, the next part of Tanya, I'm taking you through the stages of Tanya and leading up to where we're gonna launch our session from. So in the next stage of Tanya, he talks about how because of, as I mentioned before, because of the godly soul and because of the power that the mind has naturally over the heart, therefore it's possible at any moment to talk ourselves down from thinking, saying, or doing something that's not befitting our true character, our true divine character. So that's what we're meant to be doing. So we have the composition, we have the character. We have the composition of character. We have the struggle, and of course we have the goal. The goal is to nonetheless do the right thing. The problem is that if we're constantly white-knuckling it, which means holding on for dear life, right? Holding on for dear life, as we're being pulled in a negative direction, kind of forcing ourselves into good behavior, if that's the path that we're going to take, it may not be sustainable long-term. Because how long can you withhold from yourself that which you really, 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 really want to do? Like if you're really being pulled inside into some sort of negative behavior, right? So how long can you resist it, realistically? Every moment of every day for how many years? I mean, at some point, the natural human thing is, you succumb to the temptation. You break, right? That's it. That's like the key to negotiations, right? Or to like interrogations. At some point, the witness is going to break. That's kind of the angle of the animal soul. So the Alter Rebbe introduces one more idea. This is really, well, there's more than one more idea, but at this point, one more idea, and that is the importance of developing emotions toward doing the right thing. And let me explain exactly what I mean, and this is directly related to where we're going to launch tonight. Emotions for doing the right thing means a love for God and this is going to get a little bit tricky with the translation, a yira. Yira. What is yira? Either fear or awe, like A-W-E, or kind of wonderment, or some sort of emotion of, God is bigger than me and this whole thing is bigger than self. and therefore I am
Great respect.
great respect. That's a good word. That's a good word. Great respect for God. So the Alter Rebbe says, if you and I want this process of life, of doing the right thing, despite what's going on, if you want it to be sustainable, realistically, you gotta start moving to a place where you're wanting to do the right thing more, a little bit more, and you're not wanting to do the wrong thing. To give you to kind of reframe that, or to frame that in slightly different words, if you are passionate about connecting with God, you're going to be more inclined to do the mitzvah because you know that the mitzvah is what God wants you to do, and that's going to get you into that tight relationship with God. And if you respect God and you're awed by God and you would never want to do something to go against that, to go against God, well then you're likely to refrain from committing one of the 365 transgressions of the Torah. So let me articulate this clearly. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya says that love of God is the source, is a prerequisite for the performance of the 248 positive mitzvot, and fear of God, or awe of God, or respect of God is the prerequisite for the 365 negative commandments, i.e. the do-nots of the Torah. There's 613 total commandments, 248 positive, 365 negative. Love is the source of the positive, and awe, fear, respect is the source of observing the negative. I want to give you a simple example. Simple example would be in human relationships, when in let's say a loving relationship, you love the other, let's say a spouse, you love them. So because you love them, you're going to do something for them. Like, I love you, I'm going to give something to you or do something for you because I love you. But because I respect you, I'm not going to do something to hurt you. That's the meaning of respect. You with me on the difference? Does that make sense what I just said? Yes? Thumbs up if it makes sense? I'll say it again. Yes? I'll say it one more time very quickly. Love compels action for the other. Respect compels inaction, i.e. withholding oneself from harming the other. If you truly respect the other, if you're truly afraid of the other, if you're truly awed of the other, right? Or in the right, then you're not going to do something they don't want you to do. So that's what he says. So it's true. Utilizing the simple power of mind over heart, right? It reminds me of what the linebacker of the Giants, what was his name? His name was Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor once said, I don't condone all of Lawrence Taylor's post-football or maybe even during football activity because I've heard a lot of things, but I'll just tell you a quote that has always stuck with me. He said, when somebody asked, a reporter once asked him how he plays with all of his injuries. He had severe injuries and he played at a very high level. So he told the reporter, it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. So that was his line. Mind over matter, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And I it's something that I see the truth in and I see the wisdom in, at least for myself. And yes, we can get through life white knuckling it and holding on, for dear life, and by the skin of our teeth getting by. And even though we feel pulled in all sorts of negative directions, we can muster all of the strength that we have to, mind over matter, mind over heart, and nonetheless do the right thing. But to be more sustainable, we have to give ourselves a fighting chance. And to give ourselves a better chance for this fight, it means to develop more emotions, more desire to do the right thing, and less of a desire to do the wrong for God. Loving God and respect for God. The benefit of these emotions. It's not just about doing the mitzvahs. It's also about developing an emotional connection and relationship with God. Why is that important? Because of the animal soul. Because the animal soul is going to schlep you in a negative direction. Inevitably. It's going to keep its yapping. It's inside of us. It's pulling. It's constantly sending us a message, hey, don't you want to do this? Hey, don't you want to do that? Not bad stuff, just me stuff, ego stuff, which could lead to bad stuff. Because of that, the more armed we are with a very positive, divine, emotive relationship, the more likely we are to be able to say, no, I'm okay. I got the stuff that I'm doing. I'm plugged in. I like where I am with what I'm doing. Not that we're ever going to get rid of the voice inside, but we're more likely to let it go. In other words, if I wish I had a prop with me. I don't. So I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. Look at that, mind over matter. There's no matter, just use your mind. So imagine that I had in my hand a rubber band. Yeah, can you picture a rubber band? I'm holding the top and it's dangling, right? A rubber band. As my grandfather used to call it, a gum band. Anybody else call it a gum band or heard people call it a gum band? Yes? No? Is it a Pittsburgh thing? Okay, anyone unmute yourself if you've ever heard of the phrase gum band. All right.
Pittsburgh.
Huh? It's Pittsburgh?
Never.
Okay, that's fine. I'm comfortable being alone. That's okay. I feel like I'm on the island. Y'all are okay, but it's fine. We're gonna bridge that gap. Okay, so imagine I have a rubber band.
Everything your grandfather says, it's okay by me.
Thank you. That's what I say as well. Yes. Okay, so imagine I had a rubber band, and imagine I grab the bottom. Yeah, now the rubber band is between these two fingers, and I start stretching it, and 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 stretching it. Okay? And imagine I'm like pulling it all the way, as tight as I can, as far as I can, away from each other. Right? What's the condition of the rubber inside? It's being stretched a lot. It's being really, there's a lot of tension there. How do you resolve the tension? By
It needs to come back.
Well, don't let go, because that's, but if you ease it, if you move it a little bit closer to one side or the other, or toward the middle, you're going to ease the tension. The Alter Rebbe suggests that although our destiny, and again, I'm going to say this, I want to be very clear, although our destiny, God created us to struggle, although our destiny is to live with tension, existential tension. When I say existential, I mean like at the core of our existence, tension between a divine soul and an animal soul. That is our destiny. That's not a fluke. It's not a flaw. It's a feature. God wanted us to live in this state of tension, although that's true. And although even with the tension, God says, I believe in you. And Moses says, I believe in you. Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od. This is, you got this. You're feeling the burn. Yeah, it's like a workout class. You're feeling the burn. You got this. You can do this, right? You got this. And you can muster, you can white knuckle mind over heart. Although that's true, do yourself a favor and ease the tension even 1%, even 2%. I should have started the other way. I'm sorry. Ease the tension. Ease the tension 5%, 3%, 2%, even 1%. See, that sounded better when I went down. Right? Ease it even just a little bit to give yourself a better shot in this moment to make the right choice. How do you ease the tension? By getting more aligned with the right thing, with God, with something higher than self. Love and awe, fear, respect, however you want to translate it. Okay, by the way, you should know that the next section in Tanya, he says, well, based on all of this, now we can understand how to manage anxiety, how to manage fear, how to manage depression or sadness, how to manage guilt, how to manage shame, all of the negative emotions inside. Based on everything that the Alter Rebbe explains up to that point, he says now we understand how to deal with all the various inflections of negative emotions that might plague us on the inside, because all of them are coming from the animal soul, and knowing everything that we know about the composition of both souls, and about the tension, and about the interplay, and about how to ease the tension with the meditations. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. How do you get love and fear of God, or awe of God, or respect of God? It's through meditations. So now that we know all this, now we can work through and manage all these negative emotions. Wonderful. And then the Alter Rebbe continues to say, and you should know, FYI, this is the entire purpose of being. The entire purpose of being is to battle the good battle, to fight the good fight, to live in a state of tension, spiritual tension, and at every moment, to, as best you can, to do the right thing and to get closer to doing the right thing, and that converts darkness to light. It's the energy born of struggle that converts darkness to light. If it was easy, if it wasn't born of struggle, it wouldn't output the same amount of energy. The energy output, the light output, is directly proportionate with the amount of energy invested. I'm going to say that one more time. The light, the output of light is directly proportionate to the amount of energy expended in that experience, which means that a beinoni puts out more light than even a tzaddik on some level, we could say. Of course, a tzaddik has other, benefits or other advantages over the beinoni, certainly, but with regards to the conversion of darkness to light, which is the purpose of us being here on planet Earth, which is to transform the dark spaces of this world to light, that transformation happens through the conversion of our energy into light. And who expends more energy? The beinoni, not the tzaddik. For the tzaddik, it's easy to do the right thing. The tzaddik only wants to do the right thing. There's no struggle. Therefore, there's less energy expended. The more energy expended, the more light that's produced. I'm taking you literally through now chapters like 36, 37 of Tanya. Okay? At this point, the Alter Rebbe says that there's another advantage of the emotions. There's another advantage in developing emotions for God through meditation. And that is, although the main thing is the conversion of darkness to light through the expending of energy, doing the right thing even though you don't want to do it. So it seems like the white knuckling thing is actually the epitome of avodah, of service. Nonetheless, in Kabbalah it says that love and fear of God, av and yira, I'm just using the word fear, it's the simplest translation, av and yira, love and fear, are trei gadfin, the two wings. A bird can only soar when the bird has two wings. And it says in Kabbalah that love and fear are the two wings that allow our avodah, like the bird, to soar on high. So you can do a mitzvah. You can do the right thing. You were struggling, but you did it. But when you do it with love and respect and fear and awe of God, when you do it from a place of emotional connection, you didn't just do it. You did it in a beautiful way. So you have all the advantages. You have the advantage of the struggle, but you also have the advantage of doing it with an emotional connection. You were connected. You were present when you did it. You weren't somehow disconnected. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it anyway. All right, it's the right thing to do. I'm going to hold myself back. Take a deep breath. I'm not going to bop the other kid over the head with the toy. I survived that moment. Okay. All right, let me walk away. It's more than that. In this moment, we can move to a place maybe where, for this moment, we're almost like a tzaddik. We didn't want to do it, or we wanted to help out the other and not hurt them. That's what it means to allow our avodah, our service, to soar. So we still have the tension inside, but the more emotional connection we develop, the more our service shines, which takes us to chapter 41. And you guessed it, we're going to start from chapter 41. Chapter 41 of Tanya starts the next stage of development. A lot of the themes that we spoke about thus far, a lot of the themes that we spoke about in this introduction, in this introductory class tonight so far, for the first 55 minutes of studying together. Wow, time flies when you're talking Tanya. So a lot of this, many of you are somewhat familiar with. You've heard about two souls, you've heard about the struggle, you know, the concept of doing the right thing even if you don't always want to do the right thing, and the advantage of that, the output of light. A lot of you in various classes, various forms, whether studying with me or on your own or with others, a lot of you have encountered many of these concepts. Chapter 41 really begins a brand new discussion. It's not brand new, sorry, let me take a step back. It starts a new stage of development in the book of Tanya, and it's going to be a sprint from 41 to chapter 53 where Tanya ends. So it's the final 13 chapters of Tanya. The final bar mitzvah chapters, 13 chapters of Tanya, deal exclusively with developing the emotions. Because again, the main thing is to think, say, and do the right thing. Yes, 100%. And you can think, say, and do the right thing even though you're conflicted inside, even without any other emotional help. You can just think your way and white knuckle your way into doing the right thing in the moment and taking a deep breath afterwards. You can do that. But it's not so sustainable. And it's not going to soar. And, as chapter 41 mentions, or as it starts off by saying, that is not the true definition of avodah. Avodah means that you're feeling connected, you're feeling the notion of serving God. You feel like a servant. You feel like you have a responsibility. And that responsibility connects you in a sort of deep relationship. And that feeling, that emotional feeling of that relationship can only come through meditation. So the last 13 chapters of Tanya are all about emotional development, spiritual emotional development, that's based on various forms of meditation. It's such a unique approach, and it's such an exciting approach. And I'm very, very much looking forward to exploring this with you. Again, it's all about not telling you how to do the right thing even though you don't want to, telling you how to develop emotions, love and awe and fear and respect and all the emotions in between toward God, toward doing the right thing. How to develop it through various forms of meditation. It's phenomenal, it's exciting, and I'm glad you're here with me. Look, we have only a few minutes left. My intention was to go till 9 o'clock. And it's still my intention. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's still my intention. But I do want to, just very quickly, break into chapter 41 of Tanya. Okay? I want to break into it, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to be using a text that is online. You can find it. Let me back up for a second. This is a book called Lessons in Tanya. Okay? It's a 5-volume set. The first 2 volumes cover the first 53 chapters of Tanya. The last 3 volumes cover other sections that are also found in the general book known as Tanya, although the main part of Tanya, so to speak, is the 53 chapters that I spoke of before. So this is volume 2. It's volume 2, chapters 35 through 53. We're starting from chapter 41. This is the text that I'm using. Here's the good news. You can, if you want, you can purchase this online. You just go to, just Google it, Lessons in Tanya, volume 2. And if it looks like this, if it doesn't look like this, it's not going to be this. If it looks like this, then it will be this. You can feel free to purchase it. Or you can follow along with me. Lessons in Tanya. Good. Okay. Steve, what you're holding up, Steve Horowitz, what you're holding up is the previous edition of this. This just came out a few years ago. That is, you have the previous edition, which is fine. The only difference is the page number. So if I reference a page number, it's going to be different. They edit it slightly. That's another version of Tanya, good, with other commentaries. I'm going to be using this. But again, the good news is it's online. It's freely available on Chabad.org, on the main Chabad website. And I am going to share my screen with you right now so that you can see this and see what I am talking about. Sandrine is asking, is this the same volume that we studied in Kabbalah and Coffee? The answer is no. That was volume 3. This is volume 2. So, Kabbalah, Hasidism, Jewish mysticism, the Tanya, text of the Tanya, lessons in Tanya, Likutei Amarim, which is part 1, and chapter 41. That's what you need to know. That's where we are. All you need to do is Google, search Chabad, Lessons in Tanya, chapter 41, and you'll find it. But I'm sharing my screen so that we can do this together. All right, here we go. We're jumping in.
One that also has the Hebrew in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it has the Hebrew right here online. Hebrew English, yeah, for sure. Hebrew English with commentaries, and you should know that the commentary and explanations were reviewed by none other than the Lubavitcher Rebbe himself, who made edits on this commentary and translation or this work, and so you know that it's fairly legit. Not fairly, it's legit. Okay, now let us
available electronically.
Check Amazon or check the publisher kahat.com. I'm not sure if it's available like on Kindle. It might be. It's worthwhile to check. They probably do make it available. I would imagine on Amazon it's available. Maybe I'll open up a tab soon and we can look at it together. I just want to do a few lines for tonight, and then we're going to close it out. Tonight the goal was introduction, get everybody kind of on the same page, and ease into chapter 41, and then we're going to take off next week. All right, I'm going to read the English. There's a lot of commentary. The commentary is smaller text and non-italicized text. I just highlighted some of the commentary text, but I'm going to stick pretty much to the translation and give my own commentary, if you will. So I'm going to read the larger italicized words because that's more of the translation. Here we go. Chapter 41. One must, however, constantly bear in mind what is the beginning of divine service, as well as its root and core, as well as its core and root. He says, we can get carried away with all of the other stuff that we spoke about until now, but you have to remember the essentials. Don't forget to make the main thing is to make the main thing the main thing. Right? I think that was Covey that said that. Right? You can't lose track of the main thing. And that is the word avodah, divine service. There's a reason why serving God is called serving God, because it's meant to come from a place of emotion, like a servant serving a master. There is meant to be a sense of respect, a sense of awe, maybe even a tinge of fear as well. Fear, I think, is a word that's a trigger word. I imagine that when I say fear of God, many of you are thinking, I don't want to be afraid of God. That doesn't sound like a nice God. I'm with you on that. That's a natural human reaction. As we explore this, I think you'll have a different understanding of what fear means, of what awe means, of what respect means. But as we begin this chapter and this next stage in the development of the spiritual program of Tanya, it's important to remember here he's telling us the value of emotions, developing emotions toward God. And he says, what is the core? What is the root? What is at the core of divine service? Service. It's service. This means, although fear, I'm up to this line that I'm highlighting, although fear is the root of, quote, from Psalms, turn away from evil, and love is the root of do good, which means that fear is why I'm not going to violate God's wishes, and love is why I will do what God wants. Here's the big idea. This is the first time he said this from the first 40 chapters. This is brand new information. He says, nevertheless, this is huge, it is not sufficient to awaken the love alone to do good. If you want to serve God and you want to do the right thing, it's not enough to be in love with God. I'll tell you this. There are people that are in love all the time that do things that they shouldn't be doing. It's a fact in relationships. You can very much love the other, and you can do things that are not respectful of the other. So love is insufficient. Love is not enough. It's not enough to do good from a place of love. But at the very least, look what he says here, but at the very least, before performing the positive command, one must first arouse the innate fear or awe or respect which lies hidden in the heart of every Jew, not to rebel against the Supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, as has been stated above, so that this fear should be manifest itself in his heart, or at least in his mind. And what he says here is that when somebody is getting ready to do a mitzvah, so it's not just, yes, you can force yourself to do it because you know it's the right thing. Or yes, you can do it from a place of love. Oh, I love God, therefore I'm going to do it. But the core of divine service is to do it because God wants me to, and because I am like a servant to a master. I am dedicated out of the sense of awe and fear and respect toward God. And he says the fear / awe / respect should manifest in his heart, which means you should actually feel it, or at least in his mind, which means you should at least know what you should be feeling. In other words, either you actually feel it, or you know what you should be feeling, which is close to feeling it, because you know what you should be feeling. There's a difference. This is something the Alter Rebbe and Tanya explained in a previous chapter. There's a difference between feeling and then knowing what you're feeling. Not knowing what you're feeling, but knowing what you should feel. So, for example, somebody tells you about something negative that happened to them, God forbid. So you say the words, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm so sorry. And you sincerely mean it. But do you feel it in your heart, or do you know it in your head? You understand my question? When you say, I'm so sorry, upon hearing someone's negative news, God forbid, and you mean it, do you feel it in your heart? Do you really feel the empathy in your heart? Or do you know it in your head? This is not good. I should feel empathetic. I'm going to say the words of empathy. You're not feeling it, but you're having some semblance of the experience of it, at least in your mind. So what he says here is that when it comes to yira, of Hashem, of God, when it comes to this awe, fear, respect, either it should be ideally manifest in the heart, or at least in the mind. And as you'll see, we're going to stop here. I just wanted to give you a taste of 41. Look what he says here. The next line, we're not going to do it, but I'm still going to highlight it. Actually, I'm going to highlight this word, contemplate. In the Hebrew, lehit bonein, which means to contemplate or to meditate. We're about to get into the first meditation of chapter 41 of how to develop a sense of awe and fear and respect toward God. It's going to be a powerful journey. I'm glad you're here with me tonight. I look forward to continuing it with you next week. So to recap tonight's session, we talked about, I brought you up to chapter 41. Hopefully I did a good job in bringing you up to chapter 41. We spoke about the composition of the soul. We spoke about the two souls and the struggle and the tension. We spoke about the mind over heart and the ability that we have at any moment to feel and to defy our feelings and to do the right thing anyway. We spoke about how that constitutes the life of a beinoni, feeling conflicted inside but still doing the right thing in the world of action. We spoke about how that can help, at least we spoke about that in Tanya. It speaks about how that can help mitigate the negative emotions that so often plague us: guilt, shame, anxiety, fear, and the fire feelings inside, which outputs a tremendous amount of light. We spoke about the need to good output of light. Nonetheless, we're looking to make it to make the struggle at least a little bit more manageable so that we're more successful. So we spoke about the value of emotions in that regard. We spoke about the value of emotions, i.e. loving doing the right thing and not loving not doing the right thing. We spoke about that as wings which allow our avodah to soar. And now in chapter 41, he develops this notion of the value of emotions for the sake of the emotions themselves. Not as a catalyst to allow what you're doing to rise up, but to allow you to connect in a closer relationship with God through the emotions that you have. And we begin with the emotion of yira, which is fear, awe, or respect of God. And we're about to develop a meditation to help us with that. And that's going to be next week's topic, the meditation, the first meditation that leads to yira. Make sense? Yes? Everyone with me? All right, good. I am very, very excited to have started this journey. I can't wait to continue this journey next week with you. At this point, I'm going to allow you to, you're always allowed to unmute yourself, but at this point, any questions, comments, This is now open forum. Feel free to... Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. I need to mention this. You see that? Map of Tanya. Yes, you see that? Map of Tanya. I'm holding in my hand what seems to be a simple folded something. But when I open it up, you soon notice that it's an entire double-sided... Oh, I'm sorry, I showed you the opposite side. Single-sided, color-coded map of Tanya. It's got all 53 chapters mapped out with summaries and connections and bridges between all 53 chapters. It's easy to get lost in the details. This kind of maps it out. Who created this map? A good friend of mine who is a true scholar, a true Torah scholar, who is an expert in Tanya and Hasidic philosophy, who's also a renowned expert and sought after a mentor in the field of Judaism and recovery, addiction recovery. He is a best-selling author of God of Our Understanding. His name is Rabbi Taub. And I sent out a communication earlier today. I want to make sure that everybody saw it. And if you didn't, that's why I'm making this announcement now. We are launching a brand new forum every Sunday evening, 7 p.m. online, because that's where we are right now. Online speakers from around the world. Top tier speakers presenting on topics that are near and dear to them for our community. This is Intown Jewish Academy, Atlanta. Of course, it's open to everyone, but this is us right here. And we've already lined up the first month or so of speakers. We're calling this the Jewish Fireside Chat Series. Why am I calling it the Jewish Fireside Chat Series? Because, frankly, I like that name. And that's what I came up with. So I'm hoping you do too. So here's the deal. This Sunday at 7 is going to be Taub, Rabbi Taub. He will be speaking. It is going to be phenomenal because Shais is always phenomenal. You don't want to miss this. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to love it. I'm going to pull up on my computer. If you give me one moment, I'm going to pull up the announcement for this series. And this is so like cutting edge. I don't even have it downloaded on my computer yet. It's still in my email from our designer. Just got it. So here's what I'm going to do. Only because I like you guys. What I'm going to do is one more time, I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to get this going right here. Let me know. Wait, I don't think this is the wrong screen. Hold on. Let me not share this screen. Let me share the other screen. Here we go. You guys see that? This is our Jewish Fireside Chat Series, Sunday, April 26, 7 p.m. with Rabbi Taub, prolific scholar and author, renowned expert on Judaism and recovery. It's going to be on Zoom, live at 7 p.m. Please tell your friends. Please tell your family. Please tell your acquaintances. It's open to everybody, and the goal is very simple. The goal is simple. The goal is not different than it's been since we started. The goal is to keep us all connected, to keep us all inspired, to keep us all uplifted, and that's how we roll. All right, so it's been great to see everyone. It's 9:15. I'm going to let you all go. If you have any questions, I'll be here for a few minutes, but feel free to log off and have a wonderful night. Laila Tov, Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov. Tonight begins the month of Iyar. Iyar is an acronym for Ani Hashem Rofecha. I am God, your healer. May this be a month of healing for all of us. May it be a spiritual healing. May it be a very practical and physical healing for us and for the world at large. And may we all experience all of the blessings that we need. And may we continue our studies together and our journey together. Same bat time, same bat channel next Thursday night. Can't wait to see y'all. All right, I'm still here. I'm just waving by formally. I'm still here.